In April 2026, a US research firm called the Penta Group surveyed 689 serious property investors across 12 countries. These are not casual buyers, these are people who have already invested and are actively planning to invest in property outside of their home country. The question was fully simple. Where do you want to buy? That's what they asked them. And the UAE came first. It came first ahead of the United States, ahead of United Kingdom, ahead of France, Spain, and every other market in the survey. 56% of global investors named the UAE as their top target. The US came in at 54%, UK came in at 41%, France at 28%, and Spain at 27%. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why, with the numbers to back it up. Because when you put the UAE side by side with the market that it just beat, the answer becomes very obvious very, very quickly. Let me give you the full picture of the survey first. The Arada UAE Property Investment Index was conducted by the Penta Group, and it was between April the 1st and April the 23rd of 2026 this year. It was across 12 major international markets. 689 established investors participated in this survey. It is the first major international study of its kind, specifically accessing global buyer sentiment about the UAE real estate market. Again, the UAE came first at 56%, and the US second at 54%, and the UK was third at 41%. Now the nationality breakdown, because this is the part that tells you something very important. The Indian investors, 91% ranked the UAE among their top 3 destinations. Egyptian investors, 92%. Saudi Arabia investors, 85%. But here's what I find the most interesting. European investors, specifically French, German, and Swiss investors, people from some of the most sophisticated property markets in the world, all of them ranked UAE first outside of their home country. And the reason for that, when you look at the numbers, it's actually not complicated at all. Let me start with what your money actually buys you. A price per square foot across each major market. The Dubai citywide average approximately is 1,700 dirhams price per square foot. That is the verified DLD transaction data as of June 2026. Prime waterfront communities, Palm Jumeirah, downtown, Dubai Marina, they range from approximately 2,000 to 3,500 dirham per square foot. Now let me compare that to every market that is competing in this same global capital. Let's look at London, for example. The citywide average in London is approximately £622 per square foot, which if you convert to dirhams, it sits at approximately 2,930 dirham per square foot at the current exchange rates. That is the London city average, including all the suburban areas. If we look at prime central London, Mayfair, Kensington, Chelsea, Knightsbridge, which you could say is the Palm Jumeirah, the Dubai Marinas of Dubai, that trades above £5,000 per square foot. In dirhams, that's 23,500 dirham per square foot. For a building that is likely decades old, with no pool, no gym, no building amenities as standard, then you have to add the taxes on top of that, which I'll come on to. If we look at Paris, the Paris average is 10,062,000 euros per square meter, which works out at approximately 1,100 dirham per square foot. On the surface level, that appears competitive with Dubai, but here's the problem. Paris gross rental yields, they average 2.8%. It is the lowest of any major European capital. After the French income tax and other taxes on rental income, your effective net yield is tiny. And the notary fees at purchase, they run approximately 8% of the purchase value, and that's before you've even started. Let's look at New York, Manhattan, for example. You're looking at $2,500 to $5,000 per square foot. In dirham, that is approximately 9,100 dirham to 18,350 dirham per square foot. On top of that purchase price, you have an annual property tax of 1 to 2% on the assessed value. So on a property that is worth 9 million dirham, that is between 90,000 dirham and 180,000 dirham every single year just to own it. Before income tax on rent, before capital gains when you sell, something very important to notice. If we look at Singapore, Singapore's average is approximately 5,084 dirham per square foot at the current rate. Prime core central region districts inside Singapore, you're looking at approximately 6,875 dirham to 13,750 dirham per square foot. And here is the number that stops the conversation in Singapore for foreign buyers. The additional buyer stamp duty for foreigners is currently sat at 60%. Yes, that is correct. On a 5 million dirham property in Singapore, a foreign buyer pays 3 million dirham in stamp duty before they have even done a single thing with that asset. Singapore's a great city, don't get me wrong, but the numbers for foreign investments, they do not stack up anywhere near they do if we look at the UAE. Now with the UAE, the average price per square foot on a city average is 1,700 dirham. Prime waterfront from around about 2,000 dirham. There's zero annual property tax, zero income tax on rental returns, zero capital gains on sale. There is a one-time 4% DLD purchase if we look at Dubai. That is the same quality of build, the same or better amenities at a fraction of the price per square foot if we look at it versus London, New York or Singapore, and a fraction of the ongoing tax burden. Now let me walk you through the tax picture in each market in detail, because this is where the UAE's advantage becomes impossible to ignore. Let's look at the United Kingdom. If we look at the rental income, it is subject to income tax at rates up to 45%. The capital gains on a sale is 18% for basic rate taxpayers, and it's also 24% for the higher rate taxpayers on a residential property. Stamp duty land tax on a second property now includes a 5% surcharge. So on a £1 million property, that is 73,750 in stamp duty alone at purchase. Inheritance tax at 40% on estates above the threshold. According to Hamptons International, over 300,000 UK landlords sold their portfolio between 2017 and 2024. Now let's look at France. The capital gains tax in France is 19%, and it can have a combined rate of 36.2% on property gains if you take other taxes into consideration. The rental income is taxed as a regular income and up to 45%. Notary fees at the purchase time is approximately 8%. There's no coincidence that French investors rank the UAE as #1 outside of their home country. Now let's look at Germany. Capital gains tax on a property sold within 10 years of your purchase time, that is taxed as a regular income, up to 45%. You must hold the property for the gain to become tax-free for over 10 years. Rental income tax at a personal income tax rates of up to 45%, and property transfer tax at purchases ranges from 3.5 to 3.6%, depending on what state. Now let's look at the US. Federal capital gains tax on property held over a year is between 15 and 20%, depending on the income. If you add state taxes into that, in California, the combined rate exceeds 33%. Rental income tax as ordinary income at federal rates can be up to 37%. And annual property tax of 1 to 2% every single year, regardless of whether the property is tenanted or generated income. Now we have Singapore. Capital gains tax in Singapore is technically zero, which is one of the reasons why it ranks very well globally. But the entry cost for foreign buyers is at 60%, which effectively prices out most international investors out of that market entirely. Lastly, let's look at the UAE. Zero income tax on rental earnings, zero capital gains tax, zero inheritance tax, zero annual property tax. You have a one-time 4% DLD fee at the time of purchase in Dubai. That is a 2% fee in Abu Dhabi. Even when you include every cost of owning a property in Dubai, the DLD fee, the agency fees, the service charges, an investor pays approximately 6.75% of the property value over 5 years in total ownership costs. The equivalent figure in London, New York, or Paris runs between 17 and 47% over the same period. So it's not a marginal difference. It is structural, fundamentally different in how much return you can actually keep if you buy a UAE property. Now let's look at the yields, because the tax efficiency only matters if the underlying returns are there. Dubai residential rental yields, they run between 6 to 9% gross depending on the area and product type. That is also 6 to 9% net because there's nothing else to deduct. The UK residential yields, they average at approximately 3 to 4% gross before tax. After the 40% income tax for a higher rate payer, the net yield on a UK rental property can fall below 2%. Compare that to Dubai's 6 to 9%. You are not comparing the same thing when you look at gross yields side by side. Paris gross yields at an average of 2.8%. Singapore prime districts yields run approximately 3.2% to 3.5%. New York yields are 4 to 5% gross. After annual property tax and income tax, your net position looks very different from that 4 to 5%. And on the capital appreciation, prime villa communities in Dubai are recording 8 to 12% annual price growth in 2026. Emirates Hills and Palm Jumeirah Garden Homes, they are up 37% year on year. And as of most recent data, zero tax is applied to any of that gain. Now, here's what I want to be very honest about, because I don't just repeat surveys on this channel. I always try and give you the full picture. The Penta Group survey was conducted in April 2026, at the height of the regional conflict, when Dubai's secondary market had just recorded its sharpest monthly drop since the pandemic of COVID. The geopolitical situation was as bad as it has been in years, and the UAE still came first globally. That tells you something critical. The investors choosing the UAE are not choosing it because of short-term momentum. They are choosing it because of the structural fundamentals that do not change when a sentiment wobbles the market. Tax efficiency, legal framework, residency options, yields, and a government that consistently invests in infrastructure to drive that long-term value. The Abu Dhabi official data that was published this month confirms that direction. 117 billion dirham in transactions in H1 in 2026. That was up 112% year on year. And the foreign direct investment was up 309%. These are government verified, published by the ADREC, and it was published on July 17th of this year. The capital is not arriving because of optimism, it is arriving because the mass work. 50% of global investors, #1 in the world, beating the US, the UK, France, and Spain in a survey that was conducted in one of the most difficult geopolitical periods this region has ever seen. 1,000 dirham per square foot versus 23,500 dirham per square foot in London. In Manhattan, it's 18,000 dirham per square foot. In Singapore, it's 13,000 dirham per square foot with a 60% tax duty on top. Here we have zero income tax, zero capital gains, zero annual property tax, yields of 6 to 9% yet, and a government that is building huge amounts of infrastructure and one of the most ambitious infrastructure programs on this earth. This is why the UAE is #1, not because of sentiment, because the numbers. If you want to understand exactly where in the UAE the smart capital is going right now and what makes sense for your specific situation, fill out the form in the description. I will come back to you personally and let's have a chat. Please also do like and subscribe this channel. It really does help me keep making content like this. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.